Leo Jacobs, a commercial litigation and bankruptcy attorney, and attorney Lenny Morrison-Cummins, who has mediated fraud claims before the New York Attorney General's office. Leo, I just want to walk through the mechanics of what could happen starting today. If the Attorney General decides, you know, I'm done waiting, how does it work? How does she get a hold of a bank account or a property?
Very simply, you put out a notice, the AG's office puts out a notice, which functions as an execution. After the execution, it gets sent out to a sheriff. The sheriff has to deliver, right? He has to levy assets. There's two types of assets in the world: personal property, real property. So say, for example, she wants to sell 40 Wall Street. There's an execution that's sent out to the sheriff. The sheriff puts out a notice. Donald Trump has 8 weeks to do something about it. With the real property, personal property, she sends out an execution through the sheriff to a bank account, say Chase bank account. He has about 2 to 3 weeks to do something about it. And the something about it that he has to do is really get a protective order. It's a fancy way of saying, you know what, you got to pause or halt this enforcement proceedings because I want to limit, condition, and modify the judgment. That's the process.
So sheriff asks for money, Donald Trump tries to block it, but the sheriff goes in there and ultimately can get her or his hands on it.
Correct.
All right, Lenny, talk to me about the properties themselves here, because Harry was putting up on the board there are a lot of different values, but it isn't exactly forgetting how much they're actually worth, which is a whole separate issue here. But who owns which parts of them in a lot of these Trump properties seems to be an issue also. Exactly,
and real property is a lot more complicated, unfortunately, than going after cash in a bank account. These buildings in particular, all these properties, Trump owns them most likely in a labyrinth of LLCs and with joint venture partners. So in fact, determining what his ownership stake is in each of them is going to be difficult. Not to mention the fact that there's probably mortgages and other creditors in line. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
So what does that mean? There are other people in line here. Where will New York State be in line if it wants to get some value out of said property?
Yeah, the general rule is, first in time, first in right. So we're coming where we are now. So New York State is going to take its place in line. So for each of these properties, there's going to be a pretty difficult analysis to determine which ones to attack first. And that's probably why they're looking at Westchester first.
And if you had a choice between a bank account and a property, which would you choose?
It would depend on how much money is in the bank accounts, right? So if there's a lot of money in the bank accounts and you could discover that through a notice, it's a very simple process. You put out a notice and they'll tell them right away how much money is in there. Or you go after the real property. Real property is going to depend on what type of liens there are and how many liens there are. So the analysis, I think, is taking place at the AG's office as we speak.
What's a fire sale, and how could that impact the ability to get any of this money?
Yeah, if lots of property comes on the market right at the same time or in a rush fashion or auction, it's possible that the prices will be down into the ground and it will potentially devalue his assets.
Do you feel like that's a real option here? I mean, it's thrown around. Do you think it'll really happen?
You know what? It's really hard to tell what's going to happen, and it's going to depend a lot on what equity is remaining in these buildings and these properties.
And another thing I want to clear up here, just so for the mortals out there, when we talk about putting a lien on something, what exactly does that mean? Can the Attorney General do it, and what would the impact be?
So let's differentiate between, I guess, what a lien would be and what a restraining notice would be. When you're sending out a restraining notice, it's a fancy way of saying, hey, Donald, you can't move your assets, you can't sell your assets. As opposed to a lien, it says, hey, Donald, I have a lien now that if you sell or you attempt to sell those assets, even if I told you you didn't, I'm going to have to be paid in the regular ordinary course of business relative to the creditors. So that's really the difference.
How much will we know by the end of today, do you think?
Gosh, it's anyone's guess.
Well, I would say that we're going to know a lot because the deadline, I think, is today to put the bond up. And if there's a failure of putting up that bond, Donald Trump is going to have to move quite swiftly in getting a protective order.
Leo Jacobs, great to see you. Lenny Morrison-Cummins, thank you so much for your help here.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you.